Updated P2 of the list, part 1 down below. Part 1 of the list is below, and part 2 has been updated. I just left the gym after an excellent exercise. Painting is a fantastic new pastime of mine. I've grown to adore comic books. I don't hold grudges, and most individuals don't bother me. I still don't know my wife's residence. She refuses to inform me. That doesn't bother me in the least. Although I think it's petty and infantile of her, it's her problem, not mine. To be very honest, I'm doing fantastic. She passed her driving test this past weekend, so I got her a piece of vegan cheesecake. She asked me to take it somewhere, so I did, and she went to bed early. She mentioned she may pick it up today, but I doubt she will be home. I ate the thing, bought a second piece yesterday. She stated she didn't feel safe entering my house and taking it out of my refrigerator. Once more, this is her problem. If she doesn't get it, I'll just eat it. That kind of dessert is not something I often eat, so this will be my last try. I'm not bitter about her problems, but I also don't want to ruin my exercises. But honestly, there are moments when I genuinely question if I still want to be married to her. In recent weeks, the attention of other ladies has kind of awakened that thinking. I discussed the attention from women with my IC last week. He made it clear to me that receiving attention is enjoyable and that my spouse might have pursued it as well. I can now relate to her experiences. When I ignored her, she felt like she was getting attention, which made her feel fantastic. She kept looking for it. I could be prone to that. He advised me to bring it up when we see her for counseling. I didn't want to get into an argument over it, so I was going to keep it to myself. I'm debating whether or not to bring it up at MC this week. I've been doing okay for the last few weeks. I traveled to see friends in New York, where I was formerly residing. Acquired a fresh tattoo. To be honest, the few counseling sessions I've had with the W haven't been all that wonderful. The last time was tedious, with a lot of procedure speak. We discussed some of the self-discovery we have been having this week. Her main excitement was moving out of codependency and acquiring an apartment. Outside of counseling, our interaction is still very little. A stray cat approached me tonight just as I was going to enter my building. I gave her food. She has obviously been someone's pet for some time. She is in good health and all that. She is locked in a room after I brought her inside to prevent her from interacting with my 2 cats. I fed her and gave her flea medication. I'm planning to take her tomorrow to check if she has a microchip. If not, I know someone who is in need of a cat. I asked my W via text if she could look after the cat for the evening. She declined. Both she and I have rescued animals in the past and are vegans. Despite the fact that our leases prohibited dogs, we have kept them for a few nights. My W rents an apartment where pets are not allowed. She therefore used that as justification. However, that is untrue. She was merely unwilling to assist. It let me understand how much I dislike the person she has turned into. She didn't help, but I don't mind. If this one has something, my own kiddos could be in some risk. However, I've cut her off. However, if someone else watched her for the night until I could take her to be examined, it would alleviate my mind. However, I'm not upset with my W or anything. That would probably indicate that I might still be interested in her if I was angry. To be honest though, I don't feel anything. I am not too interested in what she has to say in counseling. I find it difficult to be vulnerable with her, which suggests that I still harbor some vulnerability. I'm not thrilled to see her, though. In general, don't miss her at all and don't enjoy yourself while she's around. I've promised to complete this MC until our separation agreement is reevaluated on October 1st. By then, I might be ready to move on. If I were to do it out of bitterness or anger, I wouldn't do it. I'm not attempting to harm her in any way. I'm being pushed further out the door by this as well as the attention I'm receiving from other women. Hell, I talked to the woman I sat next to on the train to New York City for 5 hours. She was attractive and persistently made out with me. Claimed that despite my ripped arms, I will be a great lecturer that the students will like, etc. She was a senior in college, and I'm going to obtain my PhD at 37, so she was too young for me. It was nevertheless quite pleasant to receive a compliment from a young lady I don't really know. My efforts at the gym are paying off. Regardless, after my W left, I have come a long way from where I had imagined myself to be since I was experiencing nighttime panic episodes. I felt like I was going to die without her. It's a completely different game now. W and I are still receiving counseling 1 month later. Hard going in terms of that kind of stuff. Undoubtedly, there are no simple or fast fixes. It was a difficult counseling session tonight. When she first mentioned her I answered in a way that infuriated her, because some of the things she stated about the entire situation did not sit well with me. She essentially instructed him to leave her alone when she severed her relationship with him. However, the entire tale simply incited me to become enraged, and initially, I did react somewhat angrily. I was then able to speak more constructively after being prodded by the counselor. By then, though, she had already become receptive to my words, which basically meant that I am not as angry with her as I once was, that I understand her difficulties with wanting attention and approval, and that I knew that I played a role in her pulling away from me. But I'm really mad at that person, so I try not to get close to him or anything. It's been a month since my last update. I still have my W and am an MC. This week, we are going to establish some new terms of separation, which most likely entails increased communication outside of counseling. Usually, we only run into each other at MC and occasionally at public gatherings. In counseling, we've made some progress, but it's been difficult. The only recent progress we've made has come from my acknowledging that my relationship with my work was actually quite similar to hers and just as harmful as her affair with a real person. I believe she was able to recognize my empathy when I came to the idea that I could own things. However, things remain difficult and the goodwill we are gradually establishing is easily eroded. On some days, I'm happy and committed to the process regardless of the result, and on other days, I just want it to be finished so I can go on to whatever comes next. Whatever the case, I have a long road ahead of me, but I'm doing okay. I still make friends and stuff like that. I recently had an art show and took home a prize. W was present and gave me a compliment. After counseling tonight, we strolled about for a little bit. Really challenging session. W is sobbing a lot. It's obvious that I've hurt her a great deal, and she's hurt me much more, and after 3 months of therapy, we haven't been able to work through it all. I find it annoying that a portion of the meetings over the last 3 months were squandered, primarily focusing on procedure. As a result, I'm pushing harder to get sessions to cover other topics through discussion, which, while less pleasant emotionally, are at least not boring. I anticipate that this will not be resolved for many months. Whatsoever course of action we choose, if possible, I would like to see reconciliation at some point. She claims that she is undecided, but by the way she's acting, I can assume she hopes we can work things out. Funding therapy, reaching out to them, other activities not related to counseling. She is still cautious, though, as I've demonstrated my capacity to demolish goodwill quickly. Most of the time, I pay more attention to what she does than what she says, and her actions indicate that she cares but is afraid of me hurting her. Her remarks so primarily support the latter. In any case, I still have a long way to go in terms of my marriage and trying to work out our differences. My W and I are slowly but surely improving. She came to my art show this past Saturday where I was exhibiting, and she hung around with me most of the time. Despite the fact that she had plenty of options and people to socialize with, she most definitely didn't have to. When it came to the whole event, she was rather encouraging. She traveled quite a distance on her own and alone to attend the event. In addition, one of her friends who was performing at the event pulled out because she didn't feel comfortable with some of the performances and got into a heated argument with the organizer. This Friday, she extended an invitation to visit her flat for the first time. Her behavior also exhibits other warning indicators. This is in spite of some remarks and therapy that imply she is unsure of her decision to remain married and is conflicted. During our last session, I tried to empathize with her by listening to her describe how upset she has been by some of my acts during the previous 8 months of being apart. I acknowledged much of what she said and uttered my fair share of harsh things. That probably made a difference for her. This week, I meant to discuss how I see the past 8 months. Nevertheless, I'm focusing more on her deeds than words, and I noticed that she is making a lot of tiny progress toward our relationship becoming more reconciled. She is organizing a housewarming for this Sunday, though, and that is the one item that came up tonight. I was unaware of that. She invited other people as well as her coworkers. I'm not sure who at work was invited, but she has severed her non-work relationship with someone I hope she didn't invite. Additionally, celebrating the apartment feels a bit like celebrating our failed marriage. I understand that it's a secure place for her, but the housewarming aspect seems excessive. I'm going to talk about it with my therapist tomorrow. How I ought to react, or how I can react without jeopardizing the trust we are trying to reestablish. I've been working on building up my painting cache in addition to finishing my dissertation, which I intend to finish in January. I was voted Best Artist in my first art show and received an award. Since being public a few months ago, I have sold numerous paintings, and I have several shows coming up in the upcoming month. Even so, I sold one to Taiwan. Getting involved in the local artist community has introduced me to a whole new group of folks, and I like it. I'm hoping to prevent any small-scale rivalry that will unavoidably arise in a situation like this and establish friendships with everyone. Hell, I'm already being asked to join the board of directors of one of the local organizations. I was raised in a metropolis and am young, which they find appealing, simple to get into and make friends with. That's what I want to do. Well, it's been another month since my last post here. W and I continue to receive counseling. We were required to discuss our goals for counseling in the following session. We have largely cleared the air in the last 3 to 4 months of counseling, discussing the hurt we caused each other and other things. We both desire to carry on with counseling. We have come a long way together over the last few months, so our counselor expressed great hope for us. We still don't live together and always will. But if we persist at it, we will eventually make progress toward reconciliation. In order to be more involved in each other's life, we are now boosting our contact. My W expressed a great deal of trepidation about going further, largely because she feels a great deal of shame about her own part in this, even though they are not constantly together. I made an effort to be understanding and told her that I didn't actually hate her. What concerns me more are the other individuals in our lives who took advantage of our marital issues. But the majority of those individuals no longer have any contact with my W2. I knew they were dishonest individuals. She worries about the future as well because it seems like my career and hers are at odds. That can be worked out as things progress, in my opinion. Nothing to be concerned about or let influence my current behavior. In any case, my marriage appears to be improving, but there is still much work to be done. Apart from that, I'm painting a lot and trying to complete my PhD this year. I've had various shows in the next 2 weeks and have sold quite a few paintings in the last few months. All appears well there. However, the academic job market is appalling. As a result, in May, I will need to find a temporary job to buy myself some time while I look for a 10-year track position. The best thing for me has been coming to AA and working out hard at the gym. If it weren't for the 12-step program and I see, my situation would be drastically different. After being apart for more than 9 months, I'm happy with where I am in life. When I initially started reading these forums, I would not have believed that was feasible. I was having anxiety attacks, losing weight, getting little sleep, etc. when I woke up in the middle of the night. My level of patience is uncertain. It's more about letting go of fear of the past, fear of the present, fear of the future, fear of if it's all for nothing, fear of myself. After 14 years of holding grudges and all the anxiety they caused, I saw the guy she had a knee with about 6 weeks ago. It was 9 months since I last saw him. We were pals once. My mind was racing with ideas of all kinds. Make threats, assault him, etc. Naturally, I took no action. However, my body was prepared to battle, as though he posed a threat to me. I didn't see him again, but there was a war going on inside of me. My body was prepared for battle as well, and I felt no release since I would never do something like that. Regretfully, the constant strain had a negative impact on me. You are aware of how frightened people can occasionally become motionless and freeze. My body, as if it were entirely afraid, shut down completely over the course of the next 5 days. Not of him, but of myself, of what I could do, of the ideas running through my mind. Jesus, the anxiety had me practically bedridden. It was all about me, though. That guy wasn't the topic of this. He sparked a concern in me that I would do something incredibly stupid toward him, which would clearly be harmful to me. I've stayed away from that individual out of fear that if he simply gave me the wrong look, I would completely ruin him. But I was able to let go of that material for the first time during those 5 days. I no longer fear who I am or what I might do. He is a moron, a pitiful loser, and it finally dawned on me that my dread of myself is the source of all this stress and anxiety. Not by him. He poses no danger. I am far more powerful than he is. I am more knowledgeable. I'm still in graduate school, and I've written something like 8 novels. And my problem is this huge thing I have in my head. I so have numerous problems. I had a strong desire to injure that dude, and it was incredibly problematic for me. However, I managed to overcome it and emerge somewhat improved. I used to shy away from visiting the university library where he works, since I was terrified of running into him. I now visit there whenever I want. I would move on if I saw him. In the odd event that he approached me, I would simply brush him off and move on. It's preferable to ignore someone than to threaten or reprimand them. No longer terrified of my responses. Relieved beyond measure, she had severed ties with him in June. If I made the decision to go on, I wouldn't be terrified of her response. I am okay with her working through her hurt, worries, and resentments in her own way for the time being, but that moment may come. I no longer feel as though I'm in the dark. I suppose I do in some aspects, but not in most. I simply no longer perceive the separation as the purgatory-like state that I once did. A divorce does not end a marriage. It is undoubtedly in critical condition, but it is in much better shape than it was throughout the summer, when I was mostly to blame for our inability to sit in the same room. If anything can be repaired at all, it takes a very long time. It will simply take time, which I suppose does call for patience, but I also need to be content with who I am and where I am at. I don't need her as much as I once did. I am no longer reliant on her for anything, which strangely allows me to be more giving with things. Whatever transpires, transpires, but it won't be because I'm pushing the boundaries or making poor decisions in order to meet some mental deadline. At some time, circumstances might force things, but not because I feel compelled to. If things continue as they are, this is a failing marriage that cannot last. A divorce could result from it. I don't want to spend too much more time in this location in the future. I'll either have earned my PhD by May or be extremely close to it. I've inquired with my institution about teaching in the fall, all but the defense. That's what I'll do if I get the go-ahead, which would mean moving if we hadn't made up by then. That being said, there are certain endpoints, but not because I feel compelled to continue. I'm nervous about everything. For me, at this moment, the things that could end it are not my personal problems, but rather hers. I think that's a nice location to be. I can live with it, for the most part. I'm not going to fall off the wall in fear about it. I'm not fixated on the result. While I sincerely hope we can resolve our differences, I won't be devastated and inconvenient. If everything goes wrong, I was 9 months ago. It seems to me that she is coping with fear, guilt, and bitterness in her own life. We have a shot if she can get past that thing, which is entirely her fault. My role is to just not add to the situation by pressuring people when I don't have to and by acting like a doormat, but still exhibiting the kind of patience you mention. I recognize that it is very difficult for her to unload this stuff, but she is an IC and is trying to find a solution. I don't think I could have handled all of this well if I hadn't been an AA. That's why, with a discipline like the 12 steps that precisely removes those toxins from a person, I am better off than she is. My wife started some lengthy chats with me today about fear, resentment, and other things. When she has spoken things in counseling and other settings, I have behaved far differently than she had anticipated. She just broke down in counseling a few weeks ago after expressing doubts about her ability to marry me. She was expecting me to leave, to reprimand her, to react negatively in some way, but I didn't. This was obviously about her because she was curled up on the couch. Not me. She is at a tough place and is in a lot of pain. I so drew nearer to her. She eventually dropped to her knees and gave me a chair hug. We had one of the most candid and private conversations we had in a very long time following counseling. There were no coldness, no guards up. During this week's counseling session, she mentioned that experience made her wonder if we could rekindle a good relationship. We discussed her introduction today at my apartment. Every Friday, she visits our pets, but we also usually talk to one another a little. We discussed how to spend the holidays and the specifics of my new work schedule, which involves teaching part-time in a different location. She will spend some time helping to look after the kiddos at my place, but we also spent more than an hour discussing our individual situations. Her biggest concerns are related to the fact that she has acquired some independence in life and continues to do so. She has been in codependent relationships, not romantic ones, but even friendships and other familial relationships, for a considerable amount of time. She does not want to give up her role as the fixer. I concurred, saying she shouldn't. I told her that I believed we could learn to coexist without being dependent on one another. Her thoughts also turned to the future. She has her own goals, but in the past I was merely a workaholic, overly focused on my career. However, my priorities have shifted significantly, and I am now much more open to changing my mind about the future. Her last worry was that she had experienced some childhood trauma and hadn't yet addressed them in therapy, nor had she addressed the underlying causes of her attraction to other guys. The attraction has been intense and stems from a dark place within her, even though she has never engaged in physical activity with these other men. The last one was an E, and I agree with her that there was never any physical contact. It wouldn't matter to me. The hardest aspect of it for me to handle is that the true relationships are emotional in any case. She believes that in order for me to work on our marriage with the intention of reconciliation, she needs time and space to work on this in counseling. Regarding that, I also believe she is correct. I recognize the allure. Although these are normal, she has to address her unresolved past concerns. All in all, it was good to finally talk about our lives without the presence of a counselor. When we first started separation counseling months ago, we could hardly sit in the same room and our sessions would invariably end with heated exchanges. Although we have gone a long way since then, there is still a long way to go before we can accomplish anything more between us. The 180-degree approach is effective in that it reverses previously negative behaviors. She claimed that if I hadn't changed all that much, it would be simpler to go, but she doesn't want to do that. She feels that if she were to move on and let another lady have a chance to get to know the new me, she would regret it and feel terrible. She is perplexed. She continues to suffer because of circumstances beyond my control and my fault. For me, this is challenging. It's difficult to handle in a sense that I can't just tell H3LL to get over it and go on. However, I've cut people out of my life for so long that this is beneficial to me in some manner, and I'm really making it difficult for her to in a positive way. I won't be a jerk and make it easy for her to walk if that's her desire. However, based on our talk today, I think she really wants me to stop putting too much pressure on her. To keep in touch, meet regularly, receive counseling, and become closer to one another, and a little room to work on her personal problems. This has nothing to do with me. It's up to me to exercise patience. Being patient is difficult. It has never been one of my strong points. She is aware of her problems, though. One of her main concerns about maintaining our marriage is that she has been working on the codependent issue for some time. That those riches will not be hers. She's never been a loner. She would explain that back then, when I attempted to convince her to obtain her own apartment, my biggest problem was being patient. She stayed with her mother until we got married, which is partly due to Caribbean customs. It's really hard not to see her behaviors as an attempt to harm me, but in the end, I don't think that's what she means. If anything, her excessive concern about hurting me makes me feel horrible. It's a codependent issue. She continues to want to exert control. For instance, she wouldn't have asked me to assist decorate her tree. After giving it some thinking, she decided against coming, fearing that she would feel guilty about the other attendees, people she actually gets along with well. That kind of stung me, and I found it hard not to see that as an intentional attempt to keep me out. I mean, she could have invited me first, given me preference, or done anything else. That's one thing, though. She also worried about it and other things till late at night. My responsibility is not to respond. Instead, my AA and counseling work is involved. I currently visit IC once every other week, but I plan to reduce that to once a month soon. So far, so good on that score. I was watching her in counseling when she broke down. With a little distance, I could see that this was all about her. That although it was not a set position, she was stating what needed to be spoken. She must not have been puzzled at that point since she would not have sobbed. During a session, our MC stated that she observed her as conflicted as well as not quite done. 2 months after the MC said I knew I was on the correct track, not much has truly altered in my relationship with my W. I travel 3 hours once a week to teach at a university in a different city, where I stay for 3 days. After that, go back. I thought about moving, but I'm not quite ready for that. We get together for lunch once a week, chat on the phone when I'm in the other city, and stay in touch on a weekly basis. Because she watches the kids while I'm away, most of our texts are about logistics. We no longer attend counseling because I am away for half of the week. Considering that both of our leases expire in May and my job status will change, the semester's end, we decided to give ourselves a sort of deadline for making decisions on our marriage. It seems to me that she wanted divorce but lacks the bravery to pursue it. She made no attempt to stop me from moving when I was thinking about doing so, but she did say she would not move. That alone is a significant problem. Where I am at now, there are no teaching jobs available. At some time, I will have to relocate if I want a tenure-track job. The possibility of moving was handled poorly by me, which exacerbated the tension between us. Nevertheless, not irreversible. We get along well, though I wouldn't say we're particularly close. Throughout the week, we spend more time together than we do with anyone else. This month, I assisted her in organizing a lecture series for a speaking engagement. I don't consider this as a marriage at all, although she does come to my art events and such. In any case, this separation has a conclusion, and it will, in one way or another, occur in a few months. I plan to persevere through the process and continue to hunt for employment. In fact, there is a strong chance that a teaching position may open up for the fall somewhere. It would require a significant shift. She wanted to come over early to drop off our car, so she texted me a little while ago. Additionally, to impart a lesson she heard yesterday at church, posing a risk to that sharing period. What will that be? Who knows? Church may either be a wonderful healing environment or a horrible one where people start to identify God with all kinds of things. Fighting, nationalism, their personal avarice, etc. Roughly. We'll find out. She wanted to apologize after hearing a talk about denial at church, so she came over once more for her and begin more forcefully acknowledging to herself the damage that did to her and our relationship. Never anticipated that. I hugged her back and told her I didn't hold anything against her and I hoped she could find a way to move on from it. We didn't really know how to handle it at the time, so we were both in pain since we were mistreating each other. As a result, we fell back on some really unconscious habits. I also made stupid decisions a lot of the time. I did mention that I doubt I'll ever be able to spend time with that on. In my heart, I wish that he gets struck by a truck while riding his foolish bike, but I won't hold it against her. Simultaneously, I was thinking of old AA cliches about how excuses don't mean anything. What counts is action. I treated her kindly. I didn't want to ruin her relationship, whatever it was, and sorry can have a deeper meaning, particularly if they had previously been reluctant to do them. Furthermore, my W seldom ever offers an apology. She is quite obstinate. Thus, it's a positive move. She still resides in the city center, nevertheless. She remains employed at the same location. She is aware of the devastation, but in the end, I don't think it matters until she is prepared to dedicate herself to our marriage. It might have some bearing on her and help her become less obstinate. However, she is only able to be honest with me and her IC about this. This would not go over well at work. Her pals would pass judgment. Her church was going to think less of her. It puts her in a difficult situation. Living like way must be difficult. In any case, it caught me off guard, and I'm relieved it wasn't something else she picked up at church. However, I would have assumed that after a year or more of counseling, her IC would have assisted her in realizing this. How wasteful. I'm at my wit's end with this, then. I spoke with W for 3 hours today. We had already established a deadline of May. I'm prepared to give up, though, and move forward with the reconciliation. On Wednesday, we have an MC session. In any case, this limbo needs to end by April. I told W that I could give her some time today to work through problems and that we could complete the tasks that our MC had provided. That she discovered about getting over an affair and that I discovered in more places than simply pals. However, there can be no more limbo. A decision must result from this. Put an end to waiting. I am currently sending out my curriculum vitae, sometimes known as a resume, to a number of businesses seeking temporary employment, all of which would need me to relocate rather far. In an effort to find some temporary job, I'm also looking at nonprofits. I'm going all out to finish my dissertation by summer, with a late summer or early fall defense, and finishing the PhD by the autumn semester, or thereabouts. My 3-hour commute to a city where I teach half the week is coming to an end in May. So, following May, my circumstances are currently uncertain. I've been pushing her to get her act together because I'm preoccupied with what has to happen next. At this point, I'm willing and ready to go. I wouldn't have any regrets at the end of the week if a job came up tomorrow. I can depart, but I have tried, stayed, and improved myself as a result. Although, in my mind, I'm ready to let go, I still believe that it's best to let her decide this. I'm willing to try if she wants to make amends, even though I know it might not work even then. However, I will do that for the time being if she is willing to commit to a process of reconciliation, moving back in together, and other things. However, that patience is running thin now that life's realities are kicking in, and other factors are pressuring this place as well, so a change must occur soon. I informed her that I needed to know by tomorrow's counseling session whether she would choose to work toward a reconciliation or a divorce. She dropped by after work. Divorce is really not what I desire. However, this limbo needs to end. But I broke down right when I felt like I was ready and would be okay even if she decided to file for divorce. We had a difficult conversation, crying together and all. We've spent so much time being so cautious. We only lower those barriers when we are experiencing emotional collapse together. My response was, of course, to propose a different course of action. Let's take 2 weeks, spend time together every day, simply doing things we enjoy and doing them together, and let all of this go. Just let loose, have fun, be honest, and act as though we are responsible for this. Even after all that labor, I just couldn't say, okay, let's get a divorce. We have a therapy session tomorrow, so I suppose that's why it counts. She matters, and I matter. She also mentioned that she needed to consider my suggestion, that even while she may see a lot of positive aspects of it, I'll have to find the strength to let go tomorrow if she feels pressured to make a decision. Something has to give if she wants to give this small thing a go, who knows? Other than on paper, the marriage is over. This late in the game, is it possible to reignite things? I'll have a good life. I have a few challenging months ahead of me financially. In an attempt to make this work, I put off finishing my dissertation and applied to several good positions. I'm gonna be in some trouble come May. For at least a year, I need a job. I am unable to work for minimum wage or any other amount. Bills from graduate school don't let that. But I'll be all right in the end. With my academic credentials, I have a fair chance of landing a decent position at a university. She's probably going to hinder me in that regard. She doesn't want to move because she likes our current residence. Therefore, in terms of a career, this might be advantageous for me. Furthermore, I'm confident that if I so choose, I will be able to find a lifelong partner with whom I won't make the same mistakes twice. Despite all of that, though, this is still not at all simple. Letting go is very difficult. And in my case, it might be a good thing that I'm hanging on until all of my options are exhausted. In most cases, I let folks go with ease. I can quickly switch off, press a button inside, and disconnect from others at will. Over the past year, I have made a lot of effort to moderate that. I can't help but wonder whether it was manipulative of me to issue the ultimatum, wait for her to make up her mind, and then present her with an alternative. Still, even if that was not my intention, I think the person is having a hard time letting things go. It's almost the finish. Did she play with him the entire time?